Today I'm here with Joe Love, strength and conditioning coach, absolute specimen of a man here at Will Jones's gym at the Edge, soon to be moving to Elite Performance. How did you get involved with boxing, especially S&C?
Yeah, my background comes from boxing. Done the amateur circuits, boxed at Repton from age of 9-year-old, in and around boxing my whole life, if I'm honest. Sort of went away for a little bit of period of time, had a few injuries, had an injury on my hand, injury on my face, broke my zygoma. So sort of come to the end of where I was able to start competing. Medicals was becoming a problem. Went away, developed myself mentally, physically, put a little bit of time on in the gym myself. Just applied myself in a whole different route really. Realised I weren't really going to be a part of the boxing side of things in terms of competing myself. So then try to put my knowledge, my know-how, bit of advice how I could help the younger fighters going through transition periods from amateurs to pro, and yeah, just trying to put the missing pieces of the puzzle together. And obviously, hence why I branched out to Will branched out to me. We sort of had a mutual few conversations, and just wanted to make it happen.
So, from your point of view, how valuable is an S&C coach to these professional fighters? What does it bring to the table? Yeah,
so S&C, in my opinion, is it's quite a generic term in terms of strength and conditioning. Everyone's going to be stronger or lack in certain areas in terms of where they're going to need improvements. My whole concept of S&C is I work through 3 different stages of training when it comes to S&C. So a lot of my programs are based around weight training. A lot of them are based around a lot of CrossFit movements in terms of high intensity weighted circuits, and then obviously your normal functioning body weight circuits. I try and incorporate the 3. So rather than just your isolated movements of deadlifts, snatches, clean and press, so on and so forth, to obviously help a fighter improve not so much physically but with an endurance level as well, I believe is key. A lot of the fighters that I'm coming across turning over from amateur to pro have got no experience in S&C whatsoever. They go through the basic training of what we've gone through as amateurs in terms of groundwork, your basic sit-ups, your push-ups. For me, that fundamental is key. Gives you a good route, gives you a good, pretty ironic, but the title was in what it says on the tin in terms of groundwork. It's grounded in you from the get-go. So there's your fundamentals regarding training. I think it's a very, very, very vital part in terms of the development of a young fighter. Again, it's just working out what parts work for different fighters. Everyone's going to do it different. But in my opinion, we're going to generate something special with a few of the fighters that we've got at Elite Boxing, without a shadow of a doubt. So,
boxing's gone from being the noble art actually to being an actual science in itself. And that's never more present than in strength and conditioning training, as well as the diets now.
For sure, yeah.
And everything else, and it's allowing fighters to have longevity. So, and so out of a fighter's everyday routine, you know, how much of strength and conditioning would you say that they need in a week just to sort of be optimum performance? I mean, you work with fighters such as Tom and everyone else. I mean, what sort of levels do these guys have to put in?
So, my opinion, a lot of Americans have had it grounded in them since day one in terms of the weight training. A lot of them come from wrestling backgrounds. If they're boxers, amateur boxers, a lot of them are on the track doing the athletics and things like that. So from day one, they're having it drummed into them from early in terms of S&C, weight training, deadlift compound movements, like I said, bench press and things like that. It's hereditary. The Soviet style of training in terms of when you come like the Lomachenko's, in terms of the Usyks, these people have been brought up around the old school style of training in terms of we're going back in time and say in the last 10 years, the facilities and the gyms that they've had out there have not been up to scratch in terms of where the UK and America and places like that have been for financial reasons. Over the last 5 to 10 years, all you are seeing sort of dominate the world of sport is Eastern Europeans, is the Soviet Union style of fighting, because in my opinion, they've been doing it the right way from the start. In terms of groundwork, they've had the old sort of style technicians in terms of showing them the S&C, bringing it back to basics, the raw methods, and over time it's proven it's working. So I don't know if we're late to the game in terms of S&C. A lot of people have been doing it for a long time. Again, it's just finding the mould of how different fighters will work with different techniques. Every fighter is different, so every style is going to be different to adapt to the fighter. There's not one generic style of SNC. My opinion, an athlete is an athlete. They should be coming into the gym in the morning. They should be training, doing their sparring, their pad work, their mitts, whatever it may be. Going home, resting, having a bit of food, a bit of active recovery, come back in the gym in the afternoon, some sort of SNC, whether or not it's sprints, whether or not it's CV work in terms of a circuit, whether or not it's a weighted circuit. Anywhere between 4 and 6 times a week of SNC, in my opinion. Again, in terms of intensity, is going to differ, but 4 to 6 weeks, in my opinion, is a no-brainer for a professional athlete that's being paid to perform the art of boxing.
So let's talk about some of the pets and hates. I mean, I was young amateur, done very, very well.
Okay.
And one of my hates was leg day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a grueling. What if you could say what was your pet hate? What would it be?
I think everyone's going to say leg day. Everyone's going to say leg day. That's had some sort of participants in the gym, whether it's weight training, whether it's boxing, whatever your sport's going to be, combat sport. I think legs is always going to be somebody's. It's not going to be their first priority as such. Over the years, I've started to enjoy legs. I've become a firm believer on sort of you cannot build a bad ass on bad foundations. It's ironic, but it's so true. So in my opinion, you build a strong fighter, you start with his legs. A lot of these fighters that are in the gym, and especially once they get to the professional level, when they turn over from amateur to professional, I beg your pardon, they're all going to be able to box. 9 times out of 10, they're all going to be talented, gifted. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in a professional gym and have the sponsors, have the backing of management, promotional teams. They're all going to be able to hold their hands. Therefore, it's just about then either turning them into, in my opinion, the way I refer to it, is a machine with the greatest respect. You have to turn that person into mentally, physically, emotionally. You've got to adapt them into all the other physical aspects of becoming a professional fighter. So yeah, my opinion would have been legs, to go back to the question. But over a period of time, as growth, your body changes, you'll realise a lot of the muscle groups in terms of arms and chest become more of just a showman muscle. When you need to use it as your arsenal, your legs, your core, your back, your shoulders are all things that are going to become fundamental to produce the best fighter possible.
Excellent. I mean, I must admit, leg day was always the pain. I hated it, and I would skip it every single time I could. But you've got old school methods, which is what I had, and you've got new school methods. So I'll go back to some of the old school stuff. Leg day, taken for a 5-mile hike on the beach. I can't think of anything worse. And then the death steps at Leon C, which I'm sure you know.
Sure
they are killers, absolute killers. And then Radar Hill in Southwood and Ferrers was another.
Okay.
So I sort of used to climb that and roll down it, being one of the heaviest lads in the gym. But the new methods with the machines that do the elevation, what do you actually prefer? Are you old school, new school, or a mixture of both?
There's only so much a computer is going to tell you. Don't get me wrong, computers are very accurate. Statistics, facts, data research, it's there for a reason. Times change, it's nice to always keep things logged. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. Old school is old school for a reason. It works. Before there was the computers and the data and the scientific methods of training fighters and things like that, you had just raw talent and raw gut. And there genuinely is a saying, if hard work beats talent, if beg your pardon, hard work, I have to cut that bit. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. It's very true. You can only be talented for so long. There's only so much a computer's going to tell you. If you've got someone behind the scenes that is really grafting, putting in the work, they're doing the hill sprints, they're doing the steps, they're doing the climbs with the sandbags and the shuttle runs and things like this, to go on things that are going on behind the scenes. In my opinion, their methods they're always going to be there, but now they're going to be there with an attachment of some sort of technology, whether it's a heart rate monitor or whether or not you've got a parachute added to the back here. You can always improve things, but I just think old school is the way it should be done. Again, with a little bit of science to it. I'm not going to dispute that, but the old school methods for me, 10 out of 10 all the time.
See, I always actually said that to people. You know, I think if you're ever going to go old school, because it trains all the muscles at the same time,
Without
rather than
a
go
doubt.
to a gym and concentrate one.
Without a doubt.
Do you know what I mean? And everything's getting to learn to work together. Is that sort of your stance with it as
Very,
well?
very, very true. Very true. I mean, look, you're seeing these athletes now on the telly. It's quite relevant. You've got the CrossFit Games coming up. They are really called the CrossFit. Beg your pardon. They are really called the fittest men on the earth for a reason. They do not get shown what they are doing prior to the competition starting. They turn up on the day. They get given the workout in black and white. That's that. Go complete it. They have to be fundamentally fit in all aspects, whether it's tire flipping, whether it's a weighted circuit, whether it's a rope climb, a bike ride, a swim, whatever it may be. They have to be fit, all round fitness. A lot of these fighters, in my opinion, are lacking in that area where they're getting a bit complacent in terms of knowing that their boxing would probably carry them through a 4-round fight, a 6-round fight, a 10-round fight, so on and so forth. Just out of sheer knowing how to move around the ring, knowing my steps, knowing if I breathe right, if I keep him at bay, I'm going to be able to gain myself a round or two. To cover that aspect of being 24/7 fit, on the job, ready, is very, very, very rare to come past nowadays. So if you build a fighter from the ground up, my opinion is I will leave the boxing to Will Jones. He is what he is. He's got an unbelievable brain when it comes down to boxing. He's been in and around some amazing fighters in the last, say, 10 years, where he's just starting to get a little bit more recognition, in my opinion, of what he deserves. I'm with him most days. He's an unbelievable trainer. I leave everything to Will when it comes down to the boxing department. My opinion, what I'm trying to do, and what we're agreeing on, what we're trying to do together, is if I can get the fighter both mentally, psychologically in the right place, in terms of being focused, keeping the bit of aggression, staying a humble professional in terms of not letting the limelight, social media, the phone and all things like that get in the way of what you've actually got to do, which is your job, and that's ultimately fighting in the ring. And then turn our fighters into the machines that they can be in terms of strength, fitness. So when they do go in the ring, they know they're not got to rely purely on their boxing skill. But when it comes to forward, and when they come to a fight and they've got a come forward fighter, or they've got to fight on the back foot, they can do the 10 to 12 rounds with their eyes closed. It's not an option. So therefore, that's what the sort of transition we're trying to make now with these new young fighters coming across, and any fighters that we get on board with us. Strip it back to basics, go back to square one when it comes down to fitness and training, and get them to the both physical and mental peak that they possibly can fight at.
So also, when I talk to people about strength and conditioning, there's one thing about being strong, but there's another thing that strength and conditioning does give you, and that's explosive power.
100%.
And how important is that, especially in the championship rounds?
100%.
This is where the difference is made, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. Strength and conditioning also can be labelled as strength and endurance, in my opinion. 4 rounds, 6 rounds, 8 rounds, 10 rounds, whatever fight you're undertaking, you're always going to have that little bit extra in the tank. Keep your explosiveness, but not to be able to gain too much muscle. So obviously you're going to keep in your weight catchment, keep nice and strong. Strength's going to come down from diet. It's going to come down from the intensity that you're putting on in the gym. Loads of aspects to cover under one umbrella. That's the same thing. The concept we're trying to implement. If we get everybody's diet correct, people can always eat throughout their training camps. I don't like the idea of getting people to 4 weeks away or 2 weeks away from training camp and then having to start pinching the scales and things like that and doing sort of saturating water fast and bits and bobs like that, overexerting your body. I like to keep the concept of we can keep everybody's training at a high level from day one, whether or not it's either prior, just before getting a fight date put in place, or even when the camp starts. Keep everyone's levels very high. Keep them all around fighting weight, but their diet's going to keep to the point where their nutritional needs are met. They're feeling hydrated. They're feeling strong. It all counteracts with the same way that you're going to do with your training. Because if you get to fight night and you've not got the aspects in terms of your hydration levels where it needs to be, your food's where it needs to be, you're not going to have no power, because you can't drive a car with no petrol in it, for argument's sake. That's my best metaphor. You have to keep everybody at peak performance 24/7. So in my opinion, strength and endurance is formidable when it comes down to boxing. It's just about getting all the other avenues right in terms of when you're about to launch the fighter onto fight night. They need to make sure they've got all their bases covered.
And the old adage goes, train hard, fight easy.
Well, there you go. Exactly that, yeah. Grind in the dark so you can shine in the light.
So if you could give one message to a young talented fighter who's just turning from amateur to pro, and obviously we're in the amateurs, we don't concentrate too much on strength and conditioning. Some guys have got it, some guys don't. What would be your best advice for someone like that? Obviously, because a lot of people assume that professional boxers, all of them are rich, and actually very few of them are. Very few of them. But what would be one of your helpful tips that you could give them?
Most helpful tip I can say is stick to your groundwork from day one. Don't cut no corners. If you can get introduced into some sort of S&C or some sort of strength and conditioning training, if budget is a problem, then obviously have a look on the computer. There's loads and loads and loads of programs out there. You've got to find what's designed best for you. As long as you're fighting at a weight where you ain't going to gain too much muscle, you might just have to tweak your diet. Another thing to be careful on, obviously, is again, your body's still growing when you're an amateur. So sort of anywhere between 16 and 22, 24 at a maximum, I'll say your body's still developing. People would obviously beg to differ and say about 18 to 20 maybe your body caps off, but my opinion, you've still got your little bit of spurts at 22 and so on. Don't overdo it. Allow your body to adapt and grow to how it needs to grow to. But engage in some sort of strength and conditioning from the early stages. Don't put too much strain and stress on your body, your muscle, your joints. Do it correctly. Seek some advice, maybe from someone else in the gym, an older professional. Don't be afraid to ask. Ask the question. There's plenty of people out there. Get in touch with someone on social media, myself, or even somebody in the gym, and I'm sure there'll be many people that will be able to give and be happy to give young amateurs the sort of bit of advice I'd love to say we would have been able to get when we was turning over and we were sort of attacking the boxing scene.
Absolutely. So how, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Yeah, so I'm one of them people, I would try to stay away from social media for as long as possible because I didn't want it to dampen what I was actually doing in terms of personal life, work and so on and so forth. But with Will in my ear most days, you have to get out there and get on social media to start sort of letting people know what we're actually trying to do here. Obviously, and times change. You have to go with the times. Just got myself set up on LinkedIn. I've just got myself set up on Instagram. Training J Love, so it's all up and running now. Everything's functional. Doing quite a lot of workouts on there. A lot of the fighters that I'm working with, fighters that are sort of fighting for titles soon. Some young fighters we've got in the gym here. Young Frank Senior, Tommy Whelan, Kate McLaren. There's a few people that we're working with. So look, keep an eye on there. By all means, keep an eye on the social media platforms. Give us a little message, and I'll be more than happy to encourage or help or give some sort of advice to the young fighters going forward, without a doubt.
Fantastic. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been great. We're going to follow this all the way through, and I'm sure you've have some opinion on these fighters, and we'll catch up very again soon.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.